I'm going to turn it on at this point. Here's what we do. They're telling us that they want to call year 1995 year 5, okay? Okay. So let's make a table over here. If we want to talk about our x's and our y's, you remember that the x's are our independent variable. They're the thing that usually, like in this case, time, we can't control time. It passes and it is what it is, right? So year 1995, they're going to call year 5. And they tell us that in year 5, if you look at it, it's like there's a point there that says 5.91. Okay, what that means, this is the year, is 1995. They're going to call it 5. So that means year 0 is like 1990. This is how you get by without doing what we did the other day. I'm not sorry we did what we did the other day, just so you can see how much simpler this is going to make stuff, okay? So that means the year 1996 will be year 6, 7, 8, let's see, 1995, 1996, 1997, 1998, 1999. The year 2000 will be 10, okay? So I'm probably going to forget that, so I'm going to write it above it just so I hopefully remember 2000. So we could keep going here. They go all the way to 14 on the graph. Now, the year 14 out here, that's going to be 2004. So I'm going to put below it 2004. They're going to ask us to do some predicting beyond year 2004. Now, there's a couple of ways you could use your calculator to help you here when we go to do the prediction. So we'll also kind of talk about that as we go through here today. But what the y-axis stands for, the year is the x, okay, and the earnings per share in dollars, okay. So if you owned 1 share of this Circuit City stock in the year 1995, you would get 91 cents profit, okay. That's what that 91 means right there, 0.91. Okay, so it says use the slopes in the graph. I'm looking at part A. Use the slopes to determine the years in which the earnings per share of stock showed the greatest increase and the greatest decrease. So I'm going to look at the greatest increase first. How would you know where the greatest increase was? Yeah, it's where the line is steepest. Now, the slope of a line represents a rate. In any situation, that's what it is. It's some kind of rate of change. And the steeper the line, that means the greater the change. So if the greatest decrease, then what year would you say those were between?
9 and 10. Or between 8 and
9. Between 8 and 9 going up. Now, that one that you said will be probably the answer part B. Oh, the second part of it. The greatest increase is when it's climbing, right? That means it's going up. So it's between year 8 and 9. So that would be, what, 1998 to 1999? Okay. Now, so when something is growing or getting bigger, the slope's going up. That's called a positive slope, if y'all remember. Okay. Now, a negative slope would mean it was decreasing, and that would be a slope that goes down. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Where do you see the steepest drop?
It's either between 1999 or between 9 and 10 or 11 and 12.
Yeah, no, it's kind of hard to tell, isn't it? How could we know for sure?
I think it's 9 and 10.
Okay.
What is the difference between 1.6, which is the high, or between 9 and 10? Subtract the y points.
Right. Yeah. We could calculate the slope. These are points. They're labeled. We could calculate the slope. Now the good thing about this is slope. Let's do between 9 and 10 first. If slope is the change in y over the change in x, then what's the change in x every time? Doesn't it just increase by 1? So you know what? We don't have to go subtract that. We can just say every time the x values are going up by 1, since we're going from 9 to 10 there. Now we could subtract. We could say, okay, well, what's 1.6? Let's subtract the y's. It looks like it's supposed to be 1.6, but anyway, it doesn't look very good. 1.6 minus 0.82. Wouldn't that be oh gosh, 7, 0.78. 0.78. Okay, so this is 0.78. That means this slope is 0.78 here, and actually it's going down, so it's negative 0.78. If you remember, it's going down, that's a falling slope, and it would be a negative slope. So let's calculate between 11 and 12, since we're not quite sure which one is steeper. So between 11 and 12, again, if the slope is the changes in the y over the change in the x, remember the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It just means subtract the y's on top, subtract the x's on bottom. That's all we're doing with slope. Again, the x's are easy because if you're going from 11 to 12, that's a 1, right? And then on the top part, let's see, what are those y values? 0.92 and 0.20. So it's 0.72, which, and it's, again, it's negative. Which of those is the steeper slope, 0.78 or 0.72? The 0.78. So it is, you were right, Charlotte, when you said 9 to 10, okay? So that means between 1999, and remember 10 represented the year 2000, because 1990 was year 0, we figured out. So that's what's going on with A there. Okay, let's look at Part B now. Part B says find the equation of the line between the years 1995 to 2004. Okay, if we had a y-intercept, we could use y equal mx plus b or something maybe to do this. If we want to find the equation of the line between 1995 and 2004, that's a straight line between the first point and the last point, right? Because there's a whole lot of different little line segments in between there. So that's a little confusing. But if we wanted to just see, okay, what's the general trend, if we wanted to represent that as a line, what we could do is, since this is 1995, come on, pick it up. And this is 2004. If we want, come on, if we wanted to draw a line from like here to here, we could write an equation of that line. Okay? That they're telling us to do that. I'm not so sure that's a great representation of what's going on, but that's what they're telling us to do for Part B. So what are the points that we have? In 1995, it's this one, isn't it? 5.91. Come on. And then in year 2004, which is 14, it's year 14, and nothing is sticking. Frustration here. Okay, 0.31. Okay. So how do you think, we've got 2 points, what's the easiest way to find the slope of the line? I mean, what's the easiest way to write the equation? You think y equal mx plus b, or y, or the point slope form, that y minus y1 is mx minus x1. You could do it either way, couldn't you? Let's do the y minus y1 is, let's use the point slope form. I'm too messy to write over that. Okay, so what we can do, let me get a little fatter, is use this. Y minus y1 is mx minus x1. And we had the point 5.91. That's better, isn't it? And then we had the point 14. I think it was 0.31. What would be the first thing I'd want to do, since I've got 2 points and I need to fill in some stuff here?
y2 minus y1 over x2 minus.
Yeah, do the slope, right? We could find the slope first. And so remember, the slope formula is this, if you need it. Again, you could just subtract the y's on top and subtract the x's on bottom. Let me show you how you can do that. I mean, I could do this. I'll go ahead and label it as if I'm going to use the formula. I'm going to call this point x1, y1. Oh, come on. I'm going to call this one x2, y2. Now, if I'm going to subtract it, do you see that if I'm going to start with y2, that would be 0.31 minus 0.91. y2 is 0.31. I got to subtract y1, which is 0.91. Yeah, we'll get that on the calculator. I think it's negative 0.6, but I just would feel better because I don't trust my brain. And then on the bottom, x2 is 14, and then you're subtracting x1, which is 5. You could have just said, if I'm going to start here, this bottom one minus the top one, put it on, write it down on top, and then you could have put it in your calculator without ever writing it down, and then on the bottom you could have said 14 minus 5, and you wouldn't have had to write all that down if you get comfortable enough to do that. So anyway, 14 minus 5 is what, 9? What's that divide out to be?
Negative 0.066666.
Okay, so now hit Math Enter to turn it into a reduced fraction.
Oops, that's wrong thing.
Okay, so what am I going to do next if I want to write the equation? What else do I need to fill in here?
The y1 and the x1.
Right, the y1 and the x1. We don't plug stuff into where the regular y and the x go usually. In this form, we never are doing that. What we're going to do is take one of those points. Now, would you rather use, we labeled the top point x1, y1. Y'all just want to go ahead and use that since it's already labeled that, and that way we don't have to. Okay, so it's y minus, and then the y1 is?
0.91.
Yep, I'm going to just write 0.91 just because getting characters to stick here gets kind of tricky. Okay, negative 3/5. And then we have, in the parentheses, we have x minus, and what's the x1 that we labeled, which is kind of hard to tell, but it's that top point, 5, okay? Now, in calculus, we're going to say this is a perfectly fine equation, and we don't need to do anything to it. They didn't tell us we had to solve for y, so you know what? If they don't tell you that you have to put it in slope-intercept form, you can stop right there. There's nothing wrong with stopping there because they didn't say put it in slope-intercept form. C says interpret the meaning of the slope of the equation from what we just did. This was part B, and we're on C now. It says interpret the meaning of this slope right here. Negative 3/5, which we know is about negative 0.6, right? What does that mean? It's negative. What does that mean about how much you're earning?
You're losing about 0.6 each year.
Yeah, you're losing. Yeah, good. You're losing. What, about 60 cents? Or you're losing money every year at the rate of this negative 3/5, which is about 0.6. So, which is about losing, let's say, 60 cents a year. What do you think is going to happen to Circuit City? We already know because we've passed the point. We were predicting this a few years ago. It actually went out of business a few years ago. When we first got this book, it was just starting to go into bankruptcy. I think almost all of them are gone now. They went out of business because they were losing money so much. The D part says use the equation from part B to estimate the earnings per share of stock in the year 2010. Okay, so what would the year 2010 be? The year 2004 was 14.
It would be
2020? Or just 20. Yeah, you're right, 20. Okay. So the year 2020 would be 20. So if I am going to try to determine how much the earnings are going to be, now what I could do is this. Here's the equation. And I know that I want to find the y that goes with x is 20. Okay? So if we simplify this 20 here represents the year 2020. Okay? Remember in our chart we drew on the very first part that the year was the, this is already, okay, sorry. Okay, so 20 minus 5 is 14. So somebody multiply negative 3/5 by 14 and tell me what you get. Okay, so now let's add 0.91 to negative 8.4, 0.91. What do you get? So, you're not making money. As a matter of fact, at this point, we know they've already gone out of business. It's the year 2016 right now, and they've already gone out of business. And so this is why they went out of business. This is accurate. This is real data.